Hello and good morning to everybody, and welcome to this, our 12th Cyberwatching webinar. My name is Nick Ferguson and I'm the coordinator of the Cyberwatching project. So I can see people are gradually joining, but I think it's important that we make a start, so we try to fit everything in to the hour. Okay, so if you can. So today we're going to be looking at a topic which is key to the objectives of our own project, so Cyberwatching, and a priority, I think, in Europe and also for the European Commission and for many of the funded activities that are going on in Europe. That is to make sense of the cybersecurity landscape. And one of our objectives of a project is to provide a visual guide to the landscape, which is useful both for the European Commission and also for policymakers and projects themselves. So we all know that cyber incidents and cyber attacks are causing damage across Europe and causing billions of euros in costs to businesses and public organizations. And indeed, cybersecurity has become one of the top priorities for the European Commission, and a wide range of measures have been adopted to shield the digital single market and protect infrastructure, governments, businesses, and citizens. So if you can change slides, please. So this is a key area for the Cyberwatching project, the mapping, the clustering and encouraging of collaboration between projects which are funded by the Commission, and to support projects in terms of them framing their results better and being more aware of the needs of potential users of the results that they are creating and the innovation that they are creating. And innovation is a key word, I think. So if you can change slides, please. The work on the radar is something which is ongoing and has been ongoing since the beginning of the project. And it basically maps 188 projects to the current today. The radar is going through a series of different iterations with a new iteration upcoming later this year. And this is what we'll be presenting today through Michael Drescher from Oxford University. Now, the radar is an important entry point, we think, for projects and for the European Commission in terms of mapping the objectives of projects and also where they are in their project lifetime. As you see, we have a large number of projects mapped, and we also have detailed information on these projects. So a click through from the radar into our own website, where projects actually manage their own internal pages of our website, where they can upload detailed information, updated information, and also promote their results and activities through our portal. Next slide, please. Another key area of our work is to support projects. So to encourage collaboration, encourage projects to come together and collaborate, and also to understand where they sit in terms of market readiness and technology readiness. So this is something which we are developing and working closely with projects in helping them to understand these categorizations well. Next slide, please. So today's agenda, we have an hour's webinar, and thank you very much for everybody for joining. We'll hear from project partners Michael Drescher from Oxford University and Marina Ramirez from EU Cybersecurity. And we'll also be hearing from a project who has been mapped and has benefited from the radar, which is ECHO, and Matteo Mirialdo will be talking about that for us as well. Next slide, please. There you can see what we all look like. And next slide, please. And finally, thank you to all of you who have registered. We had 130 registrants in the end, at this difficult time. I know that most of you, well, the majority of you will be working from home. So please bear with us in terms of connection, bear with us in terms of background noises. And you can see we have a nice geographical spread as well of participants and a good gender balance, which is always great. We have 25 projects represented on the call today, which is excellent. And it's these people who are, really innovating and taking forward cybersecurity in Europe. I will leave you now in the trusted hands of Mikel, Marina, and Matteo, and I hand over to Mikel. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, then please write them in the chat, and the speakers in the webinar will try to address them in the time that we have with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. I suggest I'll take it from here. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mikel. I'll start taking you through the underpinning concepts of how we actually organize the data and the information about the projects in the radar. The radar is based on what ThoughtWorks, a commercial company, has started innovating on as a technology radar, in which they map out in a very similar way techniques, technologies, programming languages, and tools for the information and communications technology segment. We took it from there and adapted it to our needs. And this is how we actually look at and map the data. The first dimension, or the first aspect of how we do that, is that we are using a cybersecurity and privacy taxonomy that's derived from the Oxford University's Cybersecurity and Privacy Research Taxonomy, which as some of you may know, Oxford University is a center of excellence for cybersecurity in the UK. And this taxonomy has been developed over many years. It is a two-tier taxonomy, relatively simple and straightforward, but served very well our needs. We have the level 1 is to quickly categorize projects into broad aspects of cybersecurity and privacy research. And each of those terms, category terms, are then further differentiated into 2 cluster terms that are on level 2. So operational risk and analytics and verification and assurance are part of the level 1 category of foundational technical methods and risk management for trustworthy systems and cybersecurity and privacy. These 6 level 2 cluster terms are sort of organized in this way: secure systems and technology, operational risk and analytics, and identity, behavior, ethics and privacy, and national and international security and governance are somewhat orthogonal to each other. That does not mean that they cannot be combined or cannot be scope of a research project or any project at all. But it is that they are covering different aspects of cybersecurity and privacy. Somewhat cross-cutting to them are verification and assurance. That means that you need verification and assurance on all 4 orthogonal aspects, as well as human aspects of cybersecurity are reflected in those 4 orthogonal ones as well. So to have a look at what these various different terms are covering, what they mean is secure systems and technology is probably the most straightforward one. There you look at very technical terms: cryptography, trusted platforms, wireless and mobile security, transmission, things like that, cloud computing security, radio security, network security, as well as secure software development and coding paradigms. What are the best practices? What are the software patterns that you should use in your software development strategy to create secure systems? Operational risk and analytics is the second fairly straightforward topic. This is looking at the actual securing an operational and production system. This is very popular in these days. If you look at the NIST definition of cybersecurity, they have an entire taxonomy only for operational risk and analytics. You look at how cyber attacks look like, how they propagate between organizations, how you can contain them. CSIRT is typically part of this, or cybersecurity drills. Awareness of current understanding of scenario and risk management, metrics and models, how you actually do this, perimeter protection, things like that, behavioral analytics of intrusions, and analytics for risk prediction and response prioritization and other security operations are all part of operational risk and analytics. Identity, behavior, and ethics is more looking at how do we model a digital identity. How does behavior play into that role? How do we apply role-based access control, roles, groups, things like that? How do you communicate? How do you reflect? Things like that. How do you connect people in this realm? This is all part of identity, behavior, and the ethics around cybersecurity and privacy on the individual level. National and international security, privacy, and governance is pretty much what it says. It looks at how do we conceive, develop, evolve, and enforce cybersecurity governance on the national and international level. Organizations such as ISO, IEC, and other ENISA come to mind where exactly the activities and works they provide are falling into this category or this taxonomy term. Then verification assurance is looking into formal verification of software. Things like penetration tests take part in this. To a certain extent also security drills that are very similar to fire drills in organizations or any disaster recovery or disaster scenarios that you have in companies that are very important to actually look and test your security operations. Formal verification of actual software of source code to see or to detect, does the code actually have some hidden vulnerabilities in there? Does it have bugs? Things like that, like automated patch hunting for software components are all part of verification and assurance in the cybersecurity and privacy research taxonomy. Human aspects of cybersecurity is last but not least the sixth aspect, where we look at actual dynamics of human interaction with cybersecurity, human interaction with each other in the cybersecurity space, things like that, the usability, trust issues, collaboration, nations, cultural diversity, and age diversity, because many of us know that Generation X, Y, and Z have a very different understanding, being digital natives, of how the cyberspace works, how privacy is achieved or perhaps not achieved, and how this reflects on the actual physical world. All these aspects are researched and labeled under this aspect of our taxonomy. And with that, I'll hand over to Marina for the second major aspect of how we organize and group our data in the radar. Marina?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Okay, hello, good morning to everyone. And I would like to explain to you what is MRL, the marketing readiness level. And first, let me start for the beginning. Cyberwatching aims to improve the impact of the results of research and innovation projects in the European Union and associated countries. And to achieve this goal, the overall Cyberwatching.eu methodology is founded on these three macro activities: clustering and synergizing EU-funded projects in the cybersecurity and privacy domain, engaging then and other relevant stakeholders like SMEs, clusters, policymakers, and supporting this collaboration framework with different activities. And in this first macro activity of clustering and synergizing projects, we have a workflow starting by, please, next slide, mapping and clustering projects to gain oversight, creating a project radar to have a clear idea of the innovation landscape, assess projects to check exactly what they are in terms of market and technology readiness, and when they are ready, offer the support for commercialization through our marketplace and other promotional activities. And within this readiness analysis is where we introduce the MRL concept as a complementary methodology to the well-known TRL to assess how close to the market the project outcomes are. Next slide, please. As you can see in this picture, we are assessing the technology readiness level and the marketing readiness level status of the project each 6 months. To check their evolution, it will help to prepare specific actions for projects under similar advances in marketing readiness level and technology readiness level values. You probably know the general concept that we have grouped into 4 big categories: idea, prototype, validation, and production. And we also assess the marketing status with different levels grouped also into 4 another categories: ideation, testing, traction, and scaling. This will facilitate the connection between the previous funded project and future funding actions to find synergies and convergences and to take advantage of previous results to build new products and services on the founding blocks of the identified results. Based on this analysis, Cyberwatching is trying to create a strategy, a roadmap of the strategy, and actively engage with cluster projects in a series of activities which incentivize and encourage projects to collaborate in different aspects. Next slide, please. Another way to see this is the MRL tried to respond to the question, is the market readiness for the technology? And TRL tried to respond to the question, is the technology ready for the market? And the big question is how to synchronize time and content of technology development and market development to reach this sweet spot. This is where TRL and NR are both high rated and represent the basic of successful market entry, the sweet spot. And after analyzing MTRL scores of the project, we have found that market development is the hardest part for research and innovation projects. And that's why we try to create synergies between projects so that they can help each other to reach the sweet spot, or at least to get closer. Next slide, please. And how are we assessing this market readiness of the projects? With an automatic tool, the MTRL questionnaire. It has 9 simple questions, and it's sent to the projects in the project Hub of Cyberwatching each month. With this questionnaire, projects get an MTRL score with a pair of TRL value and MRL value. With the project clustering and classification, together with the MTRL assessment, we are creating working groups of projects with the aim of finding synergies and carrying out joint activities. As the next steps, we are preparing 2 conference calls with 2 groups of projects that have been grouped by their MTRL score to work on those joint activities. The MTRL score improves the accuracy of the project radar, but if you want to know more about how the project radar works, this part is going to be explained later by Michael. Next slide, please. And having said this, I would like to introduce to Matteo Merialdo, who is the project implementation coordinator of the ECO project. He's from REA Group. And ECO project is part of the pilot of the Cybersecurity Competence Network. Matteo, please.
Hello. Yeah, many thanks for hosting me, guys. I will be quite brief. Basically, we used the radar and the Cyberwatching.eu during the first year of the project, so I'm quite happy to be hosted here. And yeah, I'm Matteo Merialdo. I work as project implementation coordinator for ECO, which basically means project manager. And I'm managing the research and development unit within REA Group in cybersecurity. Can you switch to the other slide? So very briefly, what is ECO? As I was introduced, ECO is one of the 4 pilots of the network of center of competencies. So the overall goal is to create this network of competence center and pilot what will be the future European network of competence centers. That's why one of the main activities in which we are involved is the definition and the improvement of the governance model for the future network. So basically we are piloting this governance model, not only in terms of the relationships between the organizations that are going to compose the network, but also in terms of how to deliver specific services. In ECO, we are quite interested on tangible results, in the sense that there is some applied research within the project, but we are also producing software and systems which will have quite high technical readiness level, 8 and 9, for example. So one of the goals of our studies on the governance model is to understand how the governance model of the future network of the center of competence will be able to leverage the provision of services provided by groups of organization within the network itself. In terms of things that we do, we are focused on a set of items which, as I was saying, the target technical readiness level will need to be quite high. So we are working on a multi-sector assessment framework, which aim is basically to be able to assess risks and scenarios on a multi-sector environment, and to be able to extract hints and ideas for technology roadmaps. We are also developing a methodology for developing technology roadmaps for future needs from a cybersecurity perspective. We are working on a cyber skill framework and a set of training curriculum. All the pilots are working on cyber skills. Our approach is still tied to the multi-sector assessment framework. Basically, we are assessing the needs from a cyber skill perspective at the EU level, and we are developing our cyber skill curriculum following the needs that we identify from the multi-sector assessment. We are working on the security certification scheme, which is going to be done to be sector specific. So we are working on sector specific certification schemes for products in cybersecurity. And we are working on two systems, so software systems. One is the early warning system, which is aimed at the TRL 9. And basically, the aim is to create at the European level or ready level, let's say, an early warning system for cybersecurity incidents and cybersecurity knowledge base. So there will be an engine for threat intelligence, a set of engines for collecting data from SOC, CMs, and so on and so forth, and creating this federation of organizations that can share cybersecurity information. For the early warning system, we are making the first pilot during this month with already 15 organizations within ECO. So it's quite advanced in terms of development. And probably we are going to open and to invite new partners to test and use the early warning system. The federated cyber range is another system that we are developing, which aim is to pull together in a pooling and sharing kind of a system, capacity and capability from different cyber range providers in order to offer them via a marketplace and allow the customer basically to select the best choice for their needs in terms of trainings, research and development, and so on and so forth. The federated cyber range, we have a first release in 1.5 months from now, a couple of months. And at the end of the year, we should be already ready to start piloting in quite a serious way. Can you change the slide? So just very briefly, ECO is fully open for new partners to join. We identified a set of partnership possibilities, from a very simple one, which is basically to be informed about our activities. So there is a newsletter, and you can subscribe to it from the website. And then we are envisioning other two levels. One is the classical being beneficiary, so open the grant agreement and add the new beneficiary. And the other is a little bit innovative, because we created a new legal agreement, which is less binding than a grant agreement, in order to let organizations collaborate on single technological topics. For example, someone interested in the early warning system, okay, we sign a legal agreement only for what regards this specific topic, and the organization can collaborate for what regards this specific topic. So we are just finishing a partnership handbook, which is going to be available for anybody that is interested on joining. Actually, we are 30 partners across all Europe, 16 countries, 16 nations. And our target is to put on board at least other 15 partners. We have 10 more or less now that we are evaluating. So whoever is interested, feel free to reach out to me directly. Can you go on the next? So how we use the radar, basically, that was quite useful, to be honest, from two perspectives. So one perspective is that I'm using it to keep track in a very simple way, but it's still useful on the NTRL levels. So what was discussed before, we are using not only in ECO, also in other H2020s in which my company is involved, but it's quite useful to monitor the track and also to show year by year or 6 months by 6 months the progresses of the project with what regards the market. So for that I'm quite pleased that Cyberwatching.eu created the radar. And then we are using not only the radar but also the overall Cyberwatching.eu website in order to find out projects. So we reached out a set of projects because we needed to have their expertise and their experience for what regards the specific sectors. And for example, risk analysis on specific sectors, energy, healthcare, and so forth. And also to reach out for possible collaborations in the future for what regards the cybersecurity certification schemes. And honestly, it was quite useful, guys, because it's at least a single place where you can go and you can find a plethora of projects, and some of them may be really useful. So thank you for the radar, because honestly, I think it's a good initiative, and I hope it's going to survive after the end of Cyberwatching.eu, because I mean, that would be one of my questions if I'm allowed to. And said that, I'm done. Of course, I'm open to any questions later on.
Thank you, Matteo, for this very interesting overview and for your kind words for the radar. And also for being available for questions, which reminds me to all attendees to this webinar. If you have any questions, please use them in the chat box. Our team will look and monitor them and will curate them for all the panelists and for Matteo to answer them at the end of this webinar. Having said that, let's move on and looking into how we actually compose the visualization of the radar. Now that we have the projects, well, the task of finding projects that are actually working in the space is a never-ending task. So we are going to add more and more projects over time. I have it in my to-do list to actually add about 75 new projects into the list that we are going to have in one of the next radar editions that's coming out soon. So at that point, the list of projects will jump from 188 to about 250. And that will start to give us a decent, very interesting base set of data on which we can run our analytics. So having a look at that, the current model has nearly 190 projects spanning 15 years of research within the European Commission, starting with EU Framework Program 6, then going to Framework Program 7, now H2020. And soon we will start tapping into projects that might have been funded under the Horizon Europe framework. The projects that we have currently in our projects database has nearly 800 million euros in total budget. That's quite a lot of money, quite some projects. And we need to populate the radar in a relatively intuitive way, because the main objectives of the radar, as given by various reviews in our worksheets, is that it is designed, or should be designed, as a single access point or the main entry point for people who wish to explore the landscape of EU-funded cybersecurity and privacy research. It is meant to be the point that starts to link to many other resources, to projects, to the EU, to the Cyberwatching Project Hub website and other resources that we can get our hands on. It needs to be useful to many different, what the Commission would call exploiters, we would call them stakeholders, of course to EU-funded projects such as ECHO, such as other projects. Of course, it should be useful to the European Commission itself, including the Project Assessment Office, which is something that, if I'm not mistaken, is a relatively new activity, that the formal assessment is outsourced into this office. The Joint Research Community, which I will come to later, and other entities, business units within the European Commission, and other directorates that might find the tool and the contents useful. It also should be useful to those companies that are interested in licensing technology and outcomes that come from these projects, or to investors. There are large groups of semi-open or even private investor groups where people are interested in funding in terms of angel investment, or later on more commercial terms on Series A, B, C, D, even E investment. And these are using, or can use the radar as well to see when is the best time to actually start approaching projects for proper analysis of outcomes, the maturity of the outcomes, and where to go from there. And of course, the information has to be key, has to be intuitive, and filtering and navigation is key to not lose people's attention, and for the ease of actually filtering and sifting through that information. So our first level of separation of information looks at the radar, the full radar, and the segmental view. It will not be surprising to you guys that the radar will have 6 segments, which directly corresponds to the 6 level 2 taxonomy terms that we talked about earlier. The radar will provide you a full radar overview over all 6 segments, which gives a very high level, very immediate look at, say, how busy each segment is in the EU landscape, but also a detailed look at each segment so that you can actually see in a more detailed view where and how projects are sitting. Certainly when we start getting more projects into radar, it will become very busy and the individual blips, as we call it, will become smaller and smaller, so that discerning information about a particular project per segment might become more difficult. Each segment, and hence the whole radar, have 5 rings. On the right-hand side, you see a screenshot from a manual radar that we created in spring 2018. The advancement of projects through these rings is a bit counterintuitive, but reflects both the attention as to when radar users should pay attention to projects, and not the actual succession, linear successions through the rings. It means that the 3 innermost rings are reserved for projects that are active, depending on their project lifecycle. Each project has a start and an end, and we presume with this model that projects will mature through their project lifetime. That's how they're designed to be. This is how project reviews, formal project reviews with the Commission, are designed to ensure that this actually takes place. Projects that have finished are then moved into the hold and the drop rings, where assess means you need to have a look at the project, whether it's something that you would be interested in. You would be in a passive observer role, looking at the project's progress. Trial would indicate that it's the project outputs and results might be good for giving it a go to see how it works in your environment. Adopt means that the project outputs are expected to be mature enough to actually roll them out in your infrastructure. Hold denotes that while project outputs and results, software libraries and techniques might be still useful, they are in danger of becoming legacy. And drop would mean that project results that are older than 3 years, or nearing the 3-year threshold, are on the verge to be dropped from the radar. So that means that our project database is much larger than actually the projects that we are showing into each radar, because it has legacy and old projects in there that simply would not be visualized in any future radar instances that are to come. Next, each project, as I said, is visualized as a little blip, much as a radar, say an air traffic control, or a marine or military ship navigation systems. Anything that's showing up in a certain range shows up as a blip, as a radar echo. Projects receive a unique number. This is a number that we assign for easier use and look in the radar. A black and white blip simply means we have not received any MTRL scores from the project. As you look through the radar, there are quite some projects, certainly projects that are already finished, because it's not of much use to actually try to get those numbers. We are more interested in active participation from projects that have started or still running, to give the radar users a good overview of how these projects are actually progressing. For those projects where we receive MTRL scores, we employ a color spectrum of 5 colors to denote the relative performance when compared to all other projects in the same sector, the same ring. That means when we receive MTRL scores from a project, these are condensed into one numeric score, which allows us to analyze there's a minimum and a maximum score within that ring, within the sector. And a project's performance or project scores then scores compared to that, to the minimum and the maximum and the median. And then we have a 5, say, slots for project coloring to see where they are sitting in relation to other projects in the same ring and in the same segment. And now with that, let's dive right into a live demonstration of the radar for those who are interested in that. Let me quickly stop that and share another screen. Where are we? Where's my, there we are, I share that. Can you all see the radar now? I hope you do.
No.
No, you can't.
Nope.
Let me try again. That's the joy of doing live demonstrations with 2 screens. There we go. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Excellent, very good. So there you see an example. This is the autumn 2019 radar. There we have the full overview. It's nicely colored already, but still you see mostly in the outer rings for drop and hold that we barely have any colors. Some secure systems and technology sector, which is this one, is nicely active. So thank you for that. We have nice amounts of colors. If we click on this radar, you can see, you zoom in, you see the list of projects where you can go through. And then you will see, if you click these links, you will see, you can see some more information. For example, SER IoT has a technology readiness level of 6, MRL of 1. It's a research and innovation action, and a quick summary, which is an excerpt, which is the teaser that is available from Cordis. If you go back, you can filter over here through various different segments. You see these terms are identical to those of the taxonomy. If you go to cybersecurity and governance, there you see, and you will see the ECHO project. There's the information about the ECHO project with the TRL level 7, MRL level 4. And if you click the small link, you will be brought directly to the project's Project Hub entry on Cyberwatching.eu. If you go back to the radar, you can go back in time. We have the autumn 2019, the spring 2019 radar, which will be calculated and available in a second. You see that the data looks much different. We don't have much or much less MTRL scores for the project. And if we go for autumn 2018, there we just started to put it online, and we didn't have any MTRL scores for the projects, but at least you could see that we have a good spread of projects. Of course, the secure systems and technologies segment, which is this one, is traditionally very popular when compared to, for example, this segment, which is sparse against that. To have a quick look at how the new project radar might look like, this is currently running on my local laptop. You see it's a beta service. Not all texts are available. If you compare the autumn 2019 radar, this looks quite different. The radar is much bigger. We don't have fully filled circles. We have rings around that. It gives a bit more information about that. If we look at different segments, you see a list of the projects in the various different phases. And if you look at the projects, we go over the project circles. And this is what is new. You have the project information. And here you have a further look at the relative performance of the project compared to the maximum score, which is a different project, and the minimum score of other projects in the same circle, sorry, in the same segment, and the same ring. There's the medium, so you can see that ECHO is actually fairly advanced and fairly high on the list. It's high above the median of all projects in this segment of the ring. So it is certainly something that that users of the radar should be aware of to see and to further closely monitor the activities of the ECHO project. And of course, if you click up here, you will get to the same page of the Cyberwatching.eu project hub space, where you can find more information about the ECHO project. This radar is currently under active development. As Nick said earlier today, this one will be released somewhere later this year. We are not yet feature complete. The next big feature we are trying to look at is, but we will implement, is how we are going to enable filtering of projects. We will adopt the new JRC taxonomy for cybersecurity. So projects will be able to tag themselves with terms from the taxonomy, and then you will have a filter bar up here where you can actually say, oh, I'm only interested in projects of these that have those kind of tags, and every other project will be made invisible in the radar, so they can have a very focused and quick look at how these projects look like. And with that, we are through the live demonstration of the radar and the contents of what we wanted to say in the webinar. And I'd like to open the floor for questions and answers.
Thank you, Michael. At this right moment, we have 3 questions. 2 out of them are for Matteo Merialdo, and the third one is for you, Michael. And of course, if anyone wants to make any other question, you are still on time to do it. So the first question to Matteo Merialdo is from Pedro Martins, who want to know if you have participants that are regulators and market surveillance authorities in your ECHO project.
Thanks for the question. No, we don't currently have, and we would be very interested on a possible collaboration. It was one of the targets for new partners that we were searching for. So yeah, if you have something in mind, please contact me, because definitely would be interesting.
Many thanks, Matteo. And the second question for you is from Harold Weffers, Muhammad Imran, from the Sapienza University of Rome, who wants to know if cyber certification that you have explained is a type of training for individuals.
No, we are talking about cybersecurity certification schemes for products. In reality, it's not in our grant agreement, but we decided to open the possibility for certification in relationship to cyber skills. So within the cyber skills, the ECHO cybersecurity frameworks, we will probably open a thread in relationship to certification of humans, so let's say. But I mean, it's a side activity. We need to reinforce and to finish our cybersecurity frameworks, and I think the release is for the end of the year. We are more or less at 30% of the work, and if there will be resources, probably there will be. We will work for sure also on certification for humans. But we want to do something in relationship to the usage of cyber range, because in ECHO we have a lot of cyber ranges, a lot of experience in cyber ranges. So we would like to do something particular with in that regard, because of course the innovation part is to try to do something new, not something that already exists. So in any case, if you are interested to open a discussion, I'm absolutely all ears, and I can refer you to the people that are working on that right now.
Okay. Thank you, Matteo. That's fantastic. And the third question is for Michael. It's from Harold Weffers from the Eindhoven University of Technology in USA. And he wanted to know, because we are suggesting that in the project, the scope are only European framework program projects, and we are not including relevant projects in the context of other programs such as Eureka. So the question is if the radar is limited to EU projects, or also we are considering regional, national projects in Europe.
Yes, the project, the Cyberwatching project itself, is considering national and regional projects in Europe. The prime target for the radar was to look at first to have it online and interactive using EU projects, to open it up for national and regional projects that would pose 2 questions. A, what would be the information model behind that? That's a rather technical thing that needs to be solved. B, the second one is that there's a lot going on the national level everywhere. And that would raise the amount of projects in the radar from several hundred to possibly thousands. And that poses itself a very interesting, if not difficult, visualization question, which probably would require an entirely different approach than we have with the radar.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Thank you for the clarification. So I think there is no more question. So let's try to end this excellent webinar. I hope this content was useful for you, and I encourage you to all to visit the Project Radar in the Cyberwatching site. And also, if you want to know anything else about the MTRL methodology, we also have a report, the 2.3 report on how we are assessing the MTRL. And the slides and the video of this webinar will be soon available in the Cyberwatching website in case you want to see it again, or in case someone has missed this. And if you are a project and you are interested in joining the project hub, you can do it. You can write us an email if you want to know how to do it. And you can also participate in the Project Radar by completing the questionnaire. We can send it to you. We have a very vibrant community of innovators here in Europe, and we are willing to help them to improve their results and to foster collaboration between projects. So thank you very much to all of you for attending this webinar. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Matteo. And see you very soon in another webinar.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks.
And stay safe, please.
Thanks, you too. Bye.